Y bienvenidos a este nuevo panel en el que vamos a estar hablando de las oportunidades que hay en Colombia, en Panamá y en Argentina, más precisamente en la Ciudad de Buenos Aires, y para eso nos van a estar acompañando JAIRO Altamiranda, es el vicepresidente comercial de Coljuegos, el licenciado RODRIGO Tomás, subdirector nacional de la Junta de Control de Juegos en Panamá, y Sebastián VIVOT, gerente de Modernización y Tecnología de la Información de la Lotería de la Ciudad de Buenos Aires. Yo soy Fernando SAFFORES, soy el fundador y director de Focus Gaming News y voy a estar moderando este panel. Así que les doy la bienvenida a los oradores. Espero que me estén escuchando. Sebastián, te estoy viendo. John, también te estoy viendo ahí.
Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Hola, Fernando. Hola, John.
Fernando,
¿Cómo están?
¿Cómo les ha ido?
¿Cómo está, John?
Muy bien, gracias.
Bien, por lo que veo, nos está faltando el licenciado Rodrigo Tomás, que me están avisando por WhatsApp que se está sumando en este momento.
Is joining now. So let's start to respect those who are already here to start with this conference. So if it's okay, John, we can start with you. Colombia.
Del juego online. Y nos gustaría que empieces a contar un poco cuáles son los puntos más fuertes que tiene esta regulación colombiana, como para que también otros países y otras jurisdicciones puedan valerse de esta regulación que ya tiene varios años. Y bueno, te queremos escuchar a ver qué nos podés decir al respecto.
Vale, Fernando, pues antes que nada agradecerte la oportunidad de participar en este panel como representante delegado de Coljuegos. Digamos que de los puntos fuertes para destacar de nuestra regulación de los juegos online, esta es una modalidad de juego de suerte y azar que está reglamentada desde el año 2016 acá en Colombia. Inició operaciones en julio de 2017, se firmó el primer contrato de concesión en julio de 2017, y digamos que ese lapso de tiempo comprendido entre que salió la reglamentación y inició la operación, se debió a que básicamente el producto nació con una inviabilidad financiera, y era que las apuestas, por apuestas en línea como tal, estaban gravadas con el impuesto de valor agregado IVA. Resulta que eso fue un reto para nosotros. Nos tocó impulsar una propuesta de modificación normativa ante el Congreso de la República para declarar la exención del IVA para estas apuestas deportivas. Digamos que eso fue algo de reconocer y un punto fuerte de nuestra regulación, ya que están exentos de IVA las apuestas deportivas. Y otro punto fuerte para destacar, que también nos tocó proponer una modificación en el Congreso de la República, y es que los juegos novedosos acá en Colombia, me refiero a juegos novedosos como los denomina la ley, se otorgan por licitación pública. Me refiero a juegos como Baloto, Superastro, los mismos juegos operados por internet en su momento. Se promovió una propuesta de modificación normativa para que estos juegos fueran entregados en concesión por cumplimiento de lleno de requisitos. Esto porque digamos que de acuerdo a la...
Be licensed. So we really support free market and the free demand, and we believe in the self-regulation potential of the market, provided that the providers meet the requirements. So nowadays, this is a very good point of strength, because we have 17 operators, and we have a broad range of games and offers that are regulated. And at the beginning, the regulation was not considering all the games, but now we can actually understand what are the whole game, the several games, and then in time we have pushed for new gaming offers. In 2019, last year with the pandemic, we have reacted very quickly, and we have opened live casinos, and we have broadened the offer to match with the international offer, and we have the plan to get the authorization is very quick, and it allows to generate more resources to exploit the games here in Colombia. And the regulation we have generates a high degree of confidence, of trust by the gamers, because they know they are, for example, ensured the price repayment. So there is great trust in the regulation and the institution of the state regulating gaming in Colombia. But I would like to highlight that the synergy among the different stakeholders and the operators, providers, laboratories, trade unions, they are communicating with each other also to listen to the market, to their demands, what are the new trends for gaming that they require to include in the offer of gaming. And it's very important for the success of online gaming in Colombia. And I believe that it has been very successful, this regulation, and we have grown quickly. And on the other side, I would like to highlight the fight by Coljuegos to fight against illegality, against illegal operations, and we have signed alliances with the cybernetic center of the state police. We monitor the different pages that work illegally, and obviously we block them continuously. So this is a quick synopsis of the strengths of our country's regulation. Thank you, John. Before going to Rodrigo, I would like to ask the three panelists, and to myself as well, as we are being interpreted, we speak very quickly. So I really ask you to speak slowly to allow the interpreting to be better. Rodrigo, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, how are you? Panama has been regulated since 1 year. Unfortunately, as we say, had to start dancing with the walls because you started your regulation in a very complicated time. So what are the results beyond the situation? Online gaming has grown a lot, but what is your balance for this last year, and what are the steps that you have thought for 2021? Good afternoon, nice to meet you. As you said, well, our resolution, our regulation is new. It's only 1 year old. It was issued on March 6th, and it basically starts together with the breakout of the pandemic. So basically we had 2 authorized operators. One had just been authorized at the time, so it was quite hard, the issue of implementing online gaming in Panama. But we do have our good hopes, how to say, and the next operator is Caliente. It's a Mexican company, and they are adjusting their profile quite quickly, and most probably they can start operating next month based on gaming, obviously, in our resolution 11 that addresses, despite it is new, we have some benefits because it diversifies the gaming offer. Not only that, but the resolution that we had before the 11, with that resolution, the old one, we could only use betting from abroad. We couldn't bet on our country. Now we can actually detect betting also on a national level, which is very good because it gives Panamanian people who obviously like online events also to use it, not only to participate in physical casinos or attend sports events to bet. So the competition for Panama is competition with countries that already have experience in this, Argentina, Colombia, Peru, countries that have already regulated the gaming matter. At the very moment, we are actually stepping further. The online turn is better because you don't have to actually go to a casino. You can actually play from your house, and this is gradually becoming customary. But now we have to regulate the operator, but also the gamer. With this resolution, we empower our director to request the blocking of illegal pages. So, for example, we send letters to different authorities in Spain, Mexico, Malta, the United Kingdom, and there are pages that work here illegally that detect bets here, and they are not actually creating any income to the Panamanian state because they take it out. And for example, the gamer who knows that the page through which he is gaming is regulated by our institution has the guarantee that the operator will comply with the payment according to the requirements that we ask to meet. And there are prices that are ensured in case of any issues. They have kind of guarantees, of warranties to pay instead of the operator. But for 2021, what do we expect to happen? This operator, Caliente company from Mexico, very quickly, they will start operating in 1 month. So this is our goal, which is well enrooted, and obviously there are more subjects interested in applying, but we are not interested in quantity, but in quality. We want to select our priorities, and we want to assist in a priority way to the existing operators or casinos or betting houses, because there are relationships with those. But at the same time, internationally, we also look for responsible operators, renowned and serious companies rather than beginners. This is...
Muchas gracias, Rodrigo. Y bueno, voy a pasar entonces con Sebastián. Acá en Argentina tenemos un reconocido entrevistador, Alejandro Fantino, que suele siempre...
Alejandro Fantino, who usually says there are a lot of issues and topics to introduce today, but Sebastian, we would like to ask you about the regulation of online gaming in Buenos Aires. Sebastian, you have the floor. First of all, greetings to everyone. Thank you to the organizers for their invitation, and to Fernando for his moderation. Yes, we are working 24/7 because we wanted to really go online in real time, and Buenos Aires, through its legislation by the end of 2018, had legislated online gaming with a regulation, and the operator body, which is us in Buenos Aires, we have started at the beginning of 2019, and then the pandemic came in, and the companies had to adapt, and we had as well. And now we have an open tender. We have 15 bidders waiting for their permit. Some of them are a bit cautious, but we have obviously a great offer, and we are obviously opening to the private sector, and we are working hard. Our regulation, our legislation based on Colombian and Spanish experiences, we have learned a lot of lessons from them. Y consejos también para tips to improve our legislation, and it opens the door for tomorrow to obviously create things that are do not allow you to start on the next day, but create a path to manage the sector. And obviously we follow suggestions from our colleagues from other countries, so we are working like dogs. We have companies that are 100% Argentinian, and then at local and national level we have international companies, and we are very happy. And there are companies that work with the in-presence gaming. We have online companies. We have a great range of important companies. We are now working with providers, and we have a regulation that say that the producer have to manage their own machines, and now some of them have been successful. An Argentinian company has started with the first production of machines. We are doing well, we are on time, and we are actually meeting the schedule with a lot of pressure. We know we can improve. We are working with our peers, with obviously the support of our laboratories who have supported us, and this is where we are at. And we would have hoped it was last year, and I was listening to other operators and stakeholders of the sectors that were hoping that we had last year. We are not hoping that we are another year like the past one, but we can, no, we still would like to highlight how obviously the resources that we generate through gaming, we want to return it to the people, for example, through housing solutions, and this is very important. Thank you, Sebastian. What are the benefits for the operators to operate in the city of Buenos Aires, which is a huge market? We do know, but probably the interest, what are the benefits, and what does it mean for an operator to operate in the city? First of all, I would like to clarify something administrative. Gaming in the Argentinian Republic is a rule that the federal is managed by the federation, so it's not at the national level. Every province has faculty to regulate the offer of lotteries, online, in-presence gaming, etc. So it's a bit complicated because obviously they think that Argentina is just one country, while they have to negotiate with 24 different colleagues like me. So the Buenos Aires province has 60% of the potential markets for gaming in Argentina, And it's not only the most important jurisdictions in economic terms, but also political capacity or political lobby. So I believe that there are provinces that came before us in the regulation, but they politically enable or create an industry that has to adjust, as you know well, in every country. Communication, media, advertisement is carried out at a national level, and it's not meaningful to have different activities in a province and not in others if they have advertisement nationwide. So the first benefit is that they will have facilities to actually negotiate with different jurisdictions, and also Buenos Aires, a lot of people lives in the city, not in the province. It's like a big city, and 100% of our sports betting is actually in the city. Maybe it's a bit sad, but this is how it is. So Copa Davis, the football, Copa American Cup, and we had Formula One. All over Argentina, we have a huge audience of sports fans that really can't wait to start gaming online, and we have a lot of skills. Yes, I understand very well what you're saying, and I would like to speak about responsible gaming, and I would like to go back to JHON to ask you how you are dealing with the operators and with the gamers regarding responsible gaming. Fernando, here in Colombia, we believe it's very important that we grow with a strong sense of responsibility, because since 2018 and 2019, we have a strategy of pressure, and we have spoken with all our authorized companies, and we have a logo and a channel which is Juega Bien, Play Well, and they have all included in their authorized pages this logo. And it's a logo that also redirect to a page which is Juega Bien, that gives suggestions on how to play responsibly, to use it as a healthy form of entertainment, to be perceived as such. And we have organized different events with the operators. For example, in September last year, we had a Latin American meeting of responsible gaming with more than 10 countries. It was very successful, and we had a lot of ideas for this event, because we have worked a lot on positioning strategies. But this year we have an objective for 2021, which is actually creating a resolution with principles, duties in the field of responsible gaming. And we want to put it in a positive way, as a principle, as a way to bring our operators, our authorized operators, to self-control and self-regulate. It's a strategy we are aiming at for this year, and it is very important for us to deal with responsibility, because first of all, it's very fashionable all over the market sectors in all industries, but also online gaming gamers can actually exclude themselves from a kind of authorized game. So there is a process that allows self-exclusion by gamers, and the operators, the authorized operators, are obliged to offer this opportunity. Thank you, Sean. I want to pass the floor on to Rodrigo with two questions. One is responsible gaming. How are you actually managing it in Panama? And the second question is on the regulation, which is just 1 year old. And as Colombia, it was based on the Spanish, also like here in Buenos Aires. We are based mostly on Colombian regulation. And how could you adapt it to also be used by SEBASTIAN for the regulation that is about to go?
You're on mute. Well, if we're thinking about responsible gaming, from the point of view of our administration, what we did for the first time as an oversight executive board, we published a catchphrase, no, a slogan, if you will. It says, let's play. Playing responsibly is part of the game. This is applicable to casinos, slots, gaming halls, type A, bingo halls, and online. Applies to everything, really. And this logo or slogan features on online pages, and also as well in the halls and the casinos. It's part of all the marketing materials. If we're thinking about exclusions, well, when we're talking about online, we ask them that on their pages, they place an icon so that each gambler or bettor could actually self-regulate. And that can also be done in our offices when we're talking about registration in the type A casino halls, land-based, of course. And this is what we do. And we want to create a clinic as the executive board for oversight to try to help people who may have some sort of addiction concerning gaming. Of course, we'll go hand in hand with operators. They will be supporting us, and we're going to be using counselors, psychologists, so we can treat some people. And this is our, spearhead, if you will, to deal with responsible gaming in Panama. This is quite new, had never been thought of before. If we're talking about statute for resolution, for implementing our resolutions, well, we are basing ourselves on the Colombian example, which we thought was very striking. No further administrations here had actually been bold enough to try to regulate the online world until we came in. So we really liked the example of Colombia. And we mainly liked the blockchain for blocking illegal pages. That's been done very well, and we aspire to that at the moment. Or the way we block illegal pages is something that we handle ourselves with the IGE. We send letters to Google, for example, so the operators directly, so they can help us block the pages. Because this is illegal activity. We also ask the authorities in charge of these pages But we really like how Colombia has structured these topics and how the national crime agency is involved in Colombia, and they're so very well coordinated in this respect. And we're the new kids on the block. So in this topic, which is almost a year, but our expectations are really high. Thanks, Rodrigo. Sebastian, the floor is yours. How are you going to handle the matter of responsible gaming? In the city of Buenos Aires, well, we think they're quite advanced in this respect. We travel, we raise self-awareness, we give talks. We've been to Medellin as well to find out the example of Colombia. And we will attend any relevant meetings. Well, it has been a while, and we have a responsible gaming program. And this is what I can say. The approach is the same concept that you find on land-based gaming in order to tackle addiction in the city of Buenos Aires, if we're talking about gambling addiction. We also have a self-exclusion scheme that is enabled for operators, and this is mandatory for the operators in situ and for operators online. And in contrast to the Colombian example, in Buenos Aires, you cannot step into a hall, or you cannot use a page. The self-exclusion is self-exclusion across the board. And we try to improve the biometrics reading in the premises on site. So it's not just given ID cards that people are identified. There will have to be facial recognition as well. And concerning the online, well, it's what colleague JHON was saying, and our other colleague was saying. Our brand is play well slogan, and we give tips to the public. This is an example of safe, responsible gaming, as JHON mentioned. Playing has to be entertaining, of course, but it's not just that. We have to be careful. We have to be responsible. Although we know that gambling addiction has a certain incidence, but we have to tackle it. We're not pioneers. Spain did it as well. Colombia has done it. Play well, play responsibly, and within the framework of operators in the city of Buenos Aires, they have to have preventive measures for the gambling addiction effects or excesses of gambling. Gaming has to be regulated, and through which we defend the rights of bettors, gamblers. We want something that's really global as a help, and we don't just want to stigmatize people as being diseased when they have a gambling addiction or a gambling problem. And, you know, we have been visited by international observers. We have been certified, and this is mandatory for all operators. The operator must have their own responsible gaming program. If not, they have to get on board with ours in order to get a certification. That is a level 1. 1 year later is level 2, level 3, and so on. This is a full acceptance of all the conditions or terms concerning technical tools, panic buttons, things like that. So, well, we're not reinventing the wheel. We know that our European colleagues have done these things before, but we try to do the best we can. We participate in public spaces and campaigns through public spaces, awareness, raising awareness. We're very, very strict. One more thing. In contrast to the rest of our provinces and perhaps other countries, from what we can see, game use or gambling exploitation is in the hand of the state. We simply allowing the commercializing or the trading through licenses. So the responsible game program is ours, and the compliance with anti-laundering legislation or statute is ours as well. The exploitation goes to the state through different providers. So, but the rest is ours. It's our jurisdiction. We mainly look to Spain. Spain enacted a very strict, very powerful statute legislation, and after 7 or 10 years, they are telling us these are the lessons learned. We would not do this again. Therefore, we turn to Colombia to see as well their example and see what has worked for them. So we always look outward to find their examples, but we see that the approach in itself is the same. Well, let's see what happens with the cryptocurrency. Let's start with the building blocks and keep on learning. So the examples from other countries are very important. Little by little, our approach has to be staged. So from day one, the operators know that it's not in their interest to break the rules, that it's not in their interest not to follow our programs. For companies, on a personal basis, and of course, it's a great industry. So we are very aggressive, commercially speaking. If, beg your pardon, then it may be counterproductive. But we know that in Spain, the online game was really, really well regulated. But then if the state becomes too visible in that regulation, things don't work. So this is why we want to go step by step. You talked about the amount of licenses that will be granted for the lottery in the city of Buenos Aires. Are you thinking of scaling up the number, or is it a limited number? As I see, there are several operators listening to us, and I think that your answer would be interesting. Our regulation doesn't have a limit per se concerning the number of permits. This is the permits, rather licenses. In Spanish, there's a slight difference, and the legal term in Spanish is permisos, permits for the city of Buenos Aires. And there is no limit for any companies or operators listening to us who may wish to apply for one. We believe, as maybe Colombia does or other countries, that the markets self-regulate, and the market does actually settle at some point, self-regulating in terms of competition. Evidently, we have some barriers to entry, or not barriers, but conditions to entry, but that's understandable. So not just any John Smith who can come in and obtain a license or permit, I beg your pardon. But in other jurisdictions in Argentina, there are limits. It's a challenge for us as one whole administration, because we'll have to manage many operating companies, but the city has to work, has to move. You know that we have 15 at the moment, 5 or 6 are about to be awarded, and the others are expecting. But we can actually award them in blocks, those permits. However, that's not the intention. Even if so many are quite advanced in the process, it doesn't mean that we're going to stop, that we're going to put a ceiling to it. No. Our window is still open for further applications. That's what is provided for in statute. So I want to conclude in the next 10-15 minutes. I want to remind the public, the participants, you can formulate any questions through the chat. We're going to be reading it, we're going to be looking at it, and then we can formulate your questions. JHON, I come to you now. Sebastian has mentioned something about the aid provided by lotteries or regulating entities to the state through the game. So you have quite a strong policy. We're always publishing your news, so we find news about you all the time. What can you tell us about this topic? I didn't understand. Which topic? Tax collection for the state through the gaming. Okay. We know, Sebastian, that you're quite ahead from us in this respect. So I think we're learning from one another, really. You were saying that you were looking at us as an example. No, I do beg your pardon for the intrusion, but yes, then thank you to Colombia. They have helped us so much, and we will. It will be a quid pro quo. Many thanks. So to go back to the question, in Colombia, when we're in the process of regulating new games, we try to benchmark ourselves with other jurisdictions to see what's that fee, what's the optimal fee or levy we need to raise. Sometimes we want more taxes, but we may risk the quality of certain things long term. So we need to try to validate that potential yield for the operator, and things have to be viable for them and viable for the state. So we need to try to, in this way, guarantee continuity. So for online, we have a 15% on net revenue, and the VAT exemption really does favor things a lot concerning the implementation of a game in Colombia. And this is how we're building different regulations. Always we need to think about the financial viability for the operator and for us. And of course, we need to think about how we acquire resources for the nation. And it does help us with funding our health system here in the country. We have 10 minutes left, and I wanted to ask the three of you, first JHON, what would be the final message to all the participants here under? Well, let's strengthen the responsibility. Let's grow as a sector, as an industry, with the corporate social responsibility, CSR. This will guarantee sustainability over time. And if we're talking about regulation, I like what I've heard, but it's one step after the other. I think one foot in front of the other, if you will. We need to do this way, and it is really important to offer the gambler the maximum amount of games possible. Colombia is a football nation, and the wages go to sports betting online. And if there's something positive about this pandemic, is that by cancelling all the sports events on site or in situ, we had we went up to 70% of sports betting. Now all the things have been gone in of virtual games of different types. So as long as there is a variety for all the bettors, I think we may avoid that concentration of online wagers. Thank you, JHON. Rodrigo, go ahead, please. The floor is yours. Your concluding remarks. Thank you very much for giving us a chance to talk to you. And if anybody wants to operate in Panama, you are welcome. Do trust us. Besides being very young, our regulations is strong. Not to tax you, but to do things properly for the gambler and for the operator. And so the regulating state, us and the operator can be partners. So you come to us with your investment to generate revenue, of course, and we want to welcome you and participate. And whichever participation we take goes to, for example, Social Security, Panama Red Cross. So, but we welcome you with open arms. And as I said at the beginning, we want quality and not quantity. We want responsible operators who want to work well. So you're welcome. Thank you very much for your concluding remarks. Sebastian, the honor of closing this session is yours. Well, the same as I echo what my colleagues were saying. I think LATAM is coming strong. I can see operators and labs and other companies, many people from Europe. I invite you all to invest in our continent, in my country, in our city. We want to build, as JHON said. We are partners. We know how valuable this industry is, but we have to learn to find the balance. We have to learn to work together to make the business sustainable. And I know that perhaps some elements in society are against this industry. So if we just want gains in the short term, this is actually hurt our reputation in the long term. So this is my view. I see that I'm worried about what I see happening in other places. We need to build trust with the public that this is a regulated and serious sector which offers entertainment and leisure. So it's not just about the financial gain or the financial interest. We should be able to reflect this. And I think this is an unpolished diamond. And I think that we need to try to mitigate the mistakes that were made at the beginning in other places. And we need to take the CSR very serious. Everything will be regulated. What will be your public approach? The responsible game, idea communication, how you do it. So I think sustainability for us has to do with being very practical, the industry, but all stakeholders in the industry. Thank you very much. JAIRO, the Coljuegos, Rodrigo Tomás from the oversight for the Panama Oversight Executive Board, Sebastian VIVOT, Head of Modernization of the Lottery of the City of Buenos Aires. Thank you very much. Now we're going over to the next panel, who will talk about LATAM again, LAC, Latin America and the Caribbean. We'll have Ida López, VIVIEN Villagrán ACUñA, Superintendent of Casinos Chile. Ida López is the President of the Provincial Institute of Games and Casinos in Mendoza. María Emilia Corral, she is the legal advisor to the board of directors of the lottery and the province of Mendoza, Argentina. And the moderator will be our dear Karen SIERRA-HUGHES from GLI. She is dear. Someone says she's dear, but not for all of us. No, it's a joke. Thank you very much. By the presentation, we have here Maria Emilia and Vivian here present. So I think that we should. My camera is not working, I'm afraid. I am on the mic. Could anybody help us to see if we can see a face? Okay, yes, thank you. We managed it. Many thanks for being here today, for all participants, to our panelists. Thanks, Zoltan, and thanks to all the organizers in order to focus on Latin America. We're going to deal with 3 emerging markets, and this is from the online perspective, that I say emerging. They're all at different stages. We have some of them which are just planning, and we have others that have been under regulation and some under implementation. We have Maria Emilia Corral, legal advisor of the board of directors at the Provincial Institute, and is a regulating entity and also for lottery in the province of Mendoza, Argentina. We also have VIVIEN Villagrán, who is the superintendent of casinos in Chile, regulating casino games within Chile's jurisdiction. Maria Emilia will go through with the presentation, and I will be the moderator, and I will also be giving you details concerning the province of Buenos Aires. Without further ado, let's go with the first question, because I think we're pressed for time. Maria Emilia and Mendoza province. Last year, legislation was enacted authorizing online gaming. We understand that this is being implemented and going to public tender. So could you tell us what are the main features of this future industry of the online gaming, and what the procedure for approval will be? What can you share with us in this respect concerning your new legislation? And also, what about the timings, the schedule handled by you concerning the publication of all the details, including the legislation? Many thanks. Good afternoon to you all. I am Maria Emilia. I do regret that Ida López cannot be with us. She's having connection problems. This is why it's going to be myself in charge of talking about Mendoza. Last year in October, Act 9267 was enacted, which deals with the online gaming in the province of Mendoza. And we're talking about the province of Mendoza, which may deal with anything happening in Mendoza or other provinces who may sign a deal in future with our institute. It has to do with sports betting and cash bets. As said again, it has to do online. The act excludes lotteries, pools, and tombolas, even if it's in receiving emails. This means that the physical draws are under current regulation. So we will be able to grant 2 licenses minimum and a maximum of 7 through a specific procedure, which will be public tendering. We understand that the minimum of 2 was necessary to avoid monopoly, and the maximum of 7 comes from studies that were conducted, and we thought the findings were that 7 was the maximum we could handle for a maximum of 10 years, with the possibility of rolling the contract for license for 1 year. The procedures are quite simple, and they're common to current legislation, which means one has to be domiciled in Mendoza, the province of Mendoza, and one must be registered with the tax agency, which is Mendoza's tax agency. And the tender bids will include information about technical staff, financial staff, and the background due diligence that we need. And after the license is awarded, there will be one single payment and then one monthly fee. The method of payment will be determined and published once we have closed the tender. The provincial tax is something that has already been determined by a different act, which is a 12% of the net monthly revenue. The regulation, the online gaming regulation, establishes certain conditions or restrictions about publicity. Advertising has to be non-misleading and it has to promote responsible gaming. You must not promote too much participation in the game, and it cannot be addressed to children, and it cannot be attractive to children and underage people, which is common to other laws and regulations that we have been handling and implementing over the years in the continent and of course in Europe. And we think we include the concept of CSR and the compliance with responsible gaming as guidance issued by the Provincial Institute for Casinos, and the self-limitation mechanisms have to be there, and self-exclusion of the bettors, of the gamblers. It is necessary to highlight these must be linked to our database in Mendoza. Someone who has self-excluded in online is also going to be excluded on land-based, and vice versa. People of legal age have to register if they want to play, and they will become gamblers. So they have a gaming account open, and they must be open. They will be personal and non-transferable. And credits will have to be expressed in Argentine legal tender, and the gambler will have to have access to the balance and to the game history. Personal data protection has to be guaranteed in accordance with our laws in Argentina, and the gaming happening online has to respect, of course, our legislation concerning anti-laundering and the provision of financial information. The timings and the scheduling that brings us to this in order to finalize and perfect the tender bids. We are, well, every day, I say, working very, very hard, preparing the conditions of the bid, and we hope that in the first half of this year, you will see the publication of what the regulation is and what the conditions are.
Thank you very much, Ditin. And this must be considered by the operators to enter our legislations. And just to make it clear, in the Mendoza case, those operators that are interested, do they have to be an Argentinian company or have a capital or? No, they must not be associated, but they have to be related to Buenos Aires. Now, VIVIEN represents Chile, and I asked her to come here because it's important to be clear on what's happening in different jurisdictions. In VIVIEN's case, in Chile, online gaming is not established legally by law. So I would like VIVIEN to share what is the actual scenario for online gaming in Chile, what's allowed and what's not, and what kind of games are allowed, and also regarding lotteries and betting. And finally, the progress you have had as a regulatory body to then regulate and monitor online gaming. Vivian, to you the floor. Thank you very much for having invited me in this panel. First of all, I would like to start to divide the jurisdiction into blocks. We have two jurisdictions, and in certain jurisdictions it is licit, and in others it's not. In Chile, it's illicit, so its exploitation is delegated to a legal framework that authorizes it expressly within the boundaries of the specific law. Nowadays, we don't have an online gaming law in Chile that addresses all gaming experiences, but within the legal framework, as you were saying, in Concepcion, yes, you can exploit some activities, and for example, for horse racing or some sports betting, there are licenses and authorizations, and there are some products by lot that can be used, and also through Esperto, which is a betting system, and it generates some $27 million. There are other games. Regarding Lotería Concepción, you can participate both physically and online. In the case of casinos, gaming casinos, when law 1996 was created, the law expressly said that it was prohibited to exploit casino licenses online. So this creates a base to avoid the development of this activity. And then in 2015, there was an amendment, and we are considering, and it was considering the opportunity to integrate online modes. In 2019, we have defined a working table with the sector to understand what would be the aspects that would actually have would be relevant in this sense. But we have to say that superintendency is an autonomous body that is related with the finance ministry. But we cannot create legislation. This is a faculty of other bodies. So we are a technical advisory body, but obviously it's the executive body that has the legislation power. So we still contribute to the development of a sector, and we understand that the online channel already is very developed. We are losing Vivian. She is missing Simon. I'm not sure whether maybe if you remove the video we can hear you better. We missed her because we will have to broaden a bit here. She's not connected. Yes, she is. Vivian, can you hear us? We lost her. Well, Maria Emilia, let's go back to you until Vivian. So, Vivian, you are muted. We can't hear you. If you want, yes. I was very enthusiastic and I wasn't receiving any return, so any feedback. So actually, that's how I realized that I wasn't on air.
nosotros nos estamos acercando al momento en que en Chile se produce la mayor.
We are now trying to create the most connections at night. It's actually when people connect, and I have a great connection, but connection is a bit less stable. So I think that I was telling you that the legal initiative is with the executive. So technically, we have created a working board. Our experience in some way, as we define, these are the axes to base legislation in these subjects, and with some principles that we believe we have to establish, and this law must basically create principles but leave in space somehow to be flexible and be precise in the creation of the regulation. What we have seen is that when laws get into markets that are very innovative and dynamic, if they are too rigid, too stiff, they don't allow for adaptation. First of all, we need a broadest possible definition and flexible, because we have an industry that has a high level of technological innovation. Then we have to analyze the existing demand to respond to it. We are interested in the Chilean gamers, and we want to reduce the illicit and illegal game. We have an opportunity to check different operators, and in London we saw that it was important to see the tax part. It was actually relevant, but it wasn't the most relevant aspect they were considering, because, and this was very interesting for us. Yes, because you would think that this is a very sensitive aspect, but they told us that there were other aspects that were much more important, like, for example, the license format. If it's a permanent, no permanent, with a term, without a term, much more than the income created through betting. Somehow, if there is a possibility that this license format, I am flexible enough as to include the
aspecto particularmente sensible en la estructura de incentivos que se puede producir.
Sensitive issue. So we have to consider the differences among licenses with terms, without terms, or, for example, with the opportunity to expand or not. Another relevant topic is the control of the authorized sites and illegal pages. And this is an issue both physically and online, and it becomes even more relevant when you have to inspect how the illegal casinos can can appear. Finally, something that we have seen in all seminars and meetings we have participated in is the perception and the responsible gaming issue. These are the main aspects that we have addressed so far, and they have raised a lot of consent among the actors that we regulate, which is basically physical casinos. And it's interesting to note how much the online exploitation is followed. Obviously, online gaming, we could separate two big worlds: the world of the exploitation of casino games and what is betting in a broad sense. And obviously in Latin America, sports betting is very important, but betting is very, very wide as a sector, and this obviously is calling our attention. For example, in England, where they bet on anything, yes, sports betting is important, but for example, this is very unusual, and there are very unusual topics on which they gamble. So this is something we are working on, and there was an interesting work we've been doing in the case of Chile, and it was in October 2019. We tried a social experiment, and then in 2020 we were, well, the pandemic broke out. So basically we have seen ourselves in the challenges of an industry that basically during last year has been working only for 6 months. So this. Well, you have actually touched all the points, and I wanted also to understand what were the main points of concern for the superintendency, and you are actually dealt with everything. And this is an opportunity, because if you create this level of regulation with all this information and experience with your neighbors also, because Mendoza is just out of the border, you will create a law by learning from mistakes and all the positive experiences of those who came before you. So thank you very much for sharing these details, and we're very happy to know that Chile is very motivated to create a regulation that allows the industry to be successful. It is a benefit for everyone. Now I would like to speak about Buenos Aires regarding what is the state of the art of the provinces. Sebastian mentioned the situation of the 24 provinces of Mendoza and also Buenos Aires, who is starting to regulate in its province. The regulatory model for the legislation of 2018 is based on the Spanish model, but with some features from the Colombian one. And we noted that licenses could get to a maximum of 7, which is what has been done in Mendoza. And then in the first semester of 2019, there were proposals, but just recently in December 2020, these licenses have been actually assigned to William Hill, Betson, and others, with associations with Argentinian companies or operators. So this is why I was asking to Maria Emilia before. And they have to prove their solvency at a technical, economical, and financial level, and they have to present a technical project. This is a measure taken from Spain. And in our case, this is a requirement to obtain the license. The situation currently is actually the payment of the warranty for the tax also of the period, and what the operator needs to operate is the final certification of the technical board, as I was mentioning before. And then there are payments. In Buenos Aires province case, we will allow to receive payments with cash and cards and any other means of payment authorized by the regulator and the authority. Kind of games regarding what was saying Mendoza, blackjack, slot machines, casino games in general, but there is a specific feature of the province, and that we can have We won't allow
tipos de juegos, las apuestas hípicas. Nosotros hemos notado que la mayoría de las jurisdicciones se excluyen a las apuestas hípicas, no de la operación de juego online. Sin embargo, aquí se permite igualmente las apuestas deportivas, pero también con la particularidad de que estas deben estar dentro de un listado, un catálogo que va a crear la provincia para este efecto. Y finalmente, las apuestas sobre eventos reales, no deportivos, que pueden ser cualquiera, con excepción de eventos de carácter político, ¿no? Particularidad también sobre esto es que en esta licitación se dejó por fuera a los juegos de lotería.
That this is different from the regulation of lotteries, where by law, by regulation, the institute, the body, will be able to issue specific authorization, but there was a huge campaign and there were a lot of efforts on the in-presence gaming, on responsible gaming, to raise awareness and also accompany and support people with gambling disease. To send them to clinics, or for example to direct them to hotlines to receive help or support. And this is part of the requirements that have to, for example, have to do with self-limits, as we've been seeing in Mendoza, as Maria Emilia was telling us. We have more questions, so I don't want to go too far. So I would like to go to the next question for Maria Emilia and Vivien to tell us online gaming does not operate in your jurisdiction as yet, but what is the future market dimension, the potential? And I would like to share two things: the statistics on the figures of in-presence gaming, and provisions and forecasts based on population size, etc., that are being taken into account by companies to make projections. Maria Emilia, maybe you can start on this topic. Well, as you already said, it's not easy to identify the potential of a market that does not exist. But obviously, we have drawn some statistic figures to identify these potential. Our statistics are not all updated to 2020, but they are a good parameter. The size of Mendoza's population is around 2 million people. The GDG, the gross geographical is updated to 2019. The growth rate was 44% on the nominal value, but in comparable values, in 1993, there is 2.3%, and the difference in rates is explained by the inflation in our country. And the rates are issued by the DEIE by the government of the province of Mendoza, and in presence gaming we have a reference of those open and on our institutional page in 2019. Obviously, we don't consider 2020 as it was really unusual. So the average for 2019 in physical casinos, it was 35% of the Mendozan population. For what concerns the penetration of financial services, with the progress we've seen in technology with the pandemic, we have seen an upsurge of use of financial services. So virtual or banking institutions have improved their presence in the market, and specifically from the Central Bank of Argentina, we've seen that 80% of the adult population have a bank account and a credit card. And the Central Bank is very important because its regulation is actually accompanying this innovation, technology, progress, evolution. And also with the biometric identification, the data is very much updated, and we have seen there are around 120 companies all over the country, and in Mendoza, 75% of the population has internet, and 69% of which through
no dejan de darnos la razón en ese sentido. Y el tema de la población, por eso les pedí mayor información, porque siempre se piensa en la población tiene una importancia, ¿no?, dentro del análisis que uno haga, pero
it has an importance in the analysis, but what's more important in the strategy of the jurisdiction are the characteristics that you are mentioning. The 80% is a huge percentage in Latin America. Vivian, if you want to share your side in Chile, what's the situation and the potential? I share with Maria Emilia that identifying the potential of a non-existent market can be tricky, but obviously we still have some data that allow us to understand how attractive the market can be. We have some 19 million inhabitants, and we have the highest GDP in the region. This is important. We have something that must be highlighted is the highest internet penetration, 89%, the highest in the region, and it's in the OCSE average. So Chile is a totally connected country. The amount of mobile phones is more mobile phones than people, and we have more accounts than mobile phones. So no one is just keeping. So every person has one mobile using it, and companies are giving corporate mobile phones. So this is very relevant. It is important as well mentioning that the population between 36 and 75 years of age have the highest usage of mobile phones. So basically, we are the country at the Latin American level. We have the highest level of online payment and purchases. So we already have 5G. We are the first country that is going to have a 5G connection. And obviously, this will allow data, high volumes of data traffic. And this, from the viewpoint of technological capacity, is very important. If we consider physical casinos, before the pandemic, they would generate income for around $700 million. If we see what was the development of Colombia, for example, who was the first one opening in the region, we can suppose somehow rightfully that we can get to $50 million in the first year and $400 million in the first 3 years. These figures are pretty conservative, not very optimistic, with scenarios that potentially can be stronger. I would like also to note that sports betting generates some 27 million.
Cierta, y que recién está desarrollada en términos de los productos que la puya chilena tiene en cerca del 11,2% de todo lo que ellos poseen.
This is the Chilean market is not huge, but it is a very reliable market with a very clear game rules and a behavior of regulatory bodies quite serious, and this is very relevant. So I think that Chile is a great platform to develop and project towards the rest of the region. This is especially attractive and interesting, and maybe it's also worth mentioning that the pandemic in the Chilean case raised 2 important issues. On the one side, there was an increase, a huge, an upsurge of online payments, of online purchases with respect to 2019. We are talking about 85% more, which reflects how we have consumers that are very, very used and familiar with this, with online purchases. This is very important because obviously this this tells us a lot on the online channel. And then, generally speaking, in the case of what we have observed as superintendency, we have realized that a relevant, a significant part of the actual demand for gaming, considering that physical casinos were closed, many wanted to go online, but it is illegal. So as a superintendency in this sense, we have observed that it has happened. So in Chile, there is a new technological neutrality. So you can access pages from other countries, which is not illegal. So they are operating somewhere else. So nowadays, it is impossible. And this is very important to take it into account, because a Chilean person can access a page in another country of the world, which is not illegal. The operation will become illegal when they will actually address the Chilean market specifically, but this is obviously something that we have to take into account when we analyze the Chilean market specifically.
Yes, we have the last question that's very relevant, and please do approach the subject with the next question. What's happening with illegal gaming? Because sometimes we give them the key so they can come in, but 2 things I wanted to highlight from what you said. Broadband, 5G, and the streaming that has been really mentioned. For online gaming, it will be really important, depending on network capacity, and slowness is actually make operations more difficult. And the calculation for online gaming in Chile, if we think about the percentages of the whole operation in Colombia, I think Colombia was before the pandemic between 10 to 15%, and I think they mentioned it was at 70% throughout the pandemic. Ordinarily, it's 10 to 15% if we compare it to land-based. And sports betting, those $27 million for Chile is something that's really, really attractive for any operator. Concerning the province of Buenos Aires, I will talk to you so you can think about the potential. The operators are in the process of being confirmed for the rewards, but the providers get to know the numbers. The size of the operation and gains of chance in the province of Buenos Aires is 43%. I can be corrected by Sebastian. 43% of the national percentage. 24,000 machines in 44 bingo casino halls with 19 operators. For 2019, annual revenue growth was $36 billion. It's around 600. Beg your pardon, is 25,000 average machine, and we have over 7 million in population, and 83% of connectivity, 83 connectivity, so access to internet. Financial services is 48% of access to banking and in the jurisdiction. And we always say that there's quite a financial reach if we're thinking about payment methods that allows things to be successful. There has to be a variety, not just traditional payment methods, but also something that's less conventional, so prepay cards, any sort of card, cash as well. So, and for the city of Buenos Aires, which has a huge connectivity and huge use of financial services, they are in a unique position, but I think they will also see a few challenges if we're thinking about market penetration of the legal online gaming. And now I'm going to move on to the last question. We're going to need 5 minutes. Sultan, you're going to have to allow us. I know we've only got 3 minutes left. Illegal gaming is going to affect us all. So, Maria Emilia, first, what are the difficulties that we're going to see, but what are we going to have to enable us to fight illegal gaming in Mendoza, in Argentina, in Chile? What actions have you taken in your jurisdictions against illegal gaming? You have 2 minutes each, I'm afraid. I didn't want to be too fast, but I may have to. Online game regulations is what the board determined, Institute Board determined was that, well, we took control thanks to Act 6362 since 2016. So it is a criminal offense, this illegal gaming, and you may get a conviction, a prison sentence of 3 to 6 years, although we cannot prosecute the provocateurs or the driving providers of these illegal games. However, we actually coordinate with different agencies so that we can see what the reports are for illegal gaming. We have a telephone line, or there is an online form that can be found in our web pages, the web pages of the Institute, and we can then try to assess or evaluate whether the betting took place within our jurisdiction in Mendoza or not, and then we actually refer things to the prosecution service, and then the prosecution service decides what they need to do, whether they need to block the website, etc. And we transfer any reports and we deal with them to the prosecution service. And through ELIA, ELIA is the Argentine State Association for Lotteries, Pools and Casinos, we partnered with different markets in order to block any potential illegal gaming websites. This comes from ELIA as an initiative, and there is in this way a direct link. The ELIA can say this is illegal, we can directly block it. ELIA also has a strong internal regulation concerning any reports or any potential or alleged illegal goings-on concerning gaming. And the everyday work is amazing in the fight against illegal gaming. But this is so for all jurisdictions in Argentina. One of the positive things out of the pandemic is that unanimity in this respect through ELIA and the collaboration of all the provinces that are going to fight against all aspects of illegal gaming. We have been known for this sort of fight. The city of Buenos Aires was a pioneer, and they started publishing their regulation, and there were some cases that made the headlines in this respect. And we have to congratulate ourselves because we are united in this fight. And Vivian, over to you. What can you tell us? I'm going to be concise. The network in Chile, things is, well, one can access to 900 pages of gaming online, but we don't know which ones are targeted to our market. And for that, whether is payment that is converted to Chilean pesos, and that's one identifier for us. And then whatever publicity we see, is it addressed to our people? And then if it's sports betting, if we see the promotion of national events. So in those cases, we have jurisdiction, but in any cases, we do not. We see reports, however, and people think that we can do something about it. When we get a report as civil servants, we have to send the report or pass it on to the prosecution service. Of course, we cannot prosecute, and this is what people do not understand. But our obligation is to talk to the prosecution service. And we actually develop or generate a whole case file, and then we pass it on so that the prosecution service can evaluate things to see whether things, the gaming is legal, and then take the necessary steps. Throughout the pandemic, we have seen many claims, many reports. They actually increased exponentially in 2017. From 2017 to 2020, the incidence of the reports went up 40%.
Porque básicamente la que nos llegan a nosotros no son las de apuestas deportivas. La gente
what we see is not sports betting. What we see anything to do with online casino games. That's what we then refer to the prosecution service. Yes, because the superintendency regulates the casino games, and the understanding of the public is that then therefore you have to see these reports, so they report these things to you. But it's interesting the criteria that you mentioned as an example for perhaps future legislation, so that these are elements included in statute to determine illegality. Thank you very much for your participation today in this panel. We have run out of time, I'm afraid. I think these panels are very, very short. Sultan, take note. They're very, very brief. But thank you very much, Vivian, and thank you, Maria Emilia. I now give the floor over to Carlos Figueroa, who is going to deal with the focus on the Caribbean region. Hello, everyone. Greetings. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, Karen, and thank you to our colleagues. The interpreter apologizes. The sound is too low. Could someone indicate to this gentleman that he needs to up his game? I work with GLI as representative of government relations and business development representative. We have regulators with us in our panel. We have Orlando Rivera Carrion, Executive Director at Puerto Rico Gaming Commission, Alex Berente, Corporate Senior Vice President of Casino Operations, Hard Rock International, and David Moniz, CFO, Tirsa Dominicana, and President of various other organizations. Orlando, Puerto Rico has faced many challenges, which has affected any current games, besides other proposals to do with online games, sports betting. What strategies are implemented by your government in order to deal with those elements in your market? You are on mute, I'm afraid, Orlando. Good evening, all. Good evening, friends in South America, Chile, Argentina. Puerto Rico, we have to leave the red tape aside and to try to enforce more. And I did for one casino in particular, the Hotel San Juan, and you know that our government regulates casinos and also 50% of slot machines. Falseful is going to be our partner. I can tell you that the most important thing for us is such enforcement. I hope that there will be more changes to include some flexibility so that casinos can be more flexible without so much red tape concerning the oversight by us. For example, to move a machine, you have to call the specialist. And the specialist has to be there when you move the machine. It's rather convoluted. If you wanted to move on a second one as well, you had to wait for the specialist. It has to be all detail. I'm going to move a machine from point A, point B. The government has to verify that, and then you have to have a specialist again to verify the machine was moved from point A to point B. We also want to make changes so that the spaces, for example, now concerning social distances, can improve. We can have more screens for 4 people instead of 3. But our next executive order that will be published on 7th of February will give us more information on gaming, and we may be able to open to up to 50% more. If we're thinking about horse race tracks, we're thinking for spaces to include more machines. The problem is that they're competing amongst themselves, or with themselves, if you will. They want to automate those machines for their own bets that will be very, very close. The OTMs that will be very close to other machines, and they want to include those. This is actually going to affect the smaller retailer that only deals with one type of betting. So we are overseeing that the really big ones don't actually crush the small ones. This is what we're trying to do at the moment. Working hard so that the price is a bit more attractive, so we can attract younger people to the horse race track. And I'm trying to oversee as well the development of infrastructure in this respect. If we have a great track that is ready, then some certain things have to move much, much faster. And the new markets that are about to be opening up, sports betting, DFS, other machines, is that approved? I would like you to share with us these topics. Puerto Rico approved a law authorizing 5,000 slot machines, and also the esports and for Puerto Rico. Short-term speaking, I think that in the next 100 days, we'll have to have things ready when the great leagues open up. One of them already licensed for sports betting. In casinos, it has to be on site to begin with. People have to go and to a casino and can execute the bets, and then they can move on to a portal. So the GLA perhaps can advise, but this is one of our priorities, short-term speaking. And also the next week, we'll be granting the first licenses for transitioning the illegal gaming to legal gaming. We're legalizing some of these retailers soon, and this is part of the project that I have in hand. And medium term, I would say that we want to have 25,000 slot machines that are not in casinos, and to be able to have them identified in certain places and to see where they're going to be certified and slotted in the place. And then technology, of course, long term is the idea. Those 25,000 machines, this is something that we studied. Our General Assembly and the executive thought about this, authorized another 20,000 machines, and these shouldn't affect casinos. But of course, let's think about the legalization of the illegal. Let us hope this doesn't have an impact. So long term, again, besides those 25,000 machines, I'm hoping that the Dorado Casino, Fast Food in Hotel San Juan is going to open as well, and the Ritz-Carlton as well. For 2022, Embassy Suite and the Fast Food will be ready for this year, for the end of this year. We are talking about perhaps a hard rock in Puerto Rico that will be marvelous for us, perhaps a little bit more longer term for towards the end of 2022. It will be nice to have 20 casinos in Puerto Rico with new partners for our government. And short, medium term for the region, we can have the Clásico del Caribe. And well, this is almost the end of January, first month of the year. What are we thinking about? New operators, new providers, new companies being formed? The nearest future to you, what are you seeing in technology that's going to be innovative and the ones that are going to be quite exciting coming to you? Sports betting, I would say, virtual perimetral technologies, connection, SAS system for the machines, you know, the SAS system, but this is going to be innovative for us, for the machines. Gaming authentication protocol is quite important concerning technologies, and we are trying to implement this in the casinos at the moment. And this is part of all the projects that we have. Some medium terms and long term. We are trying to think about these things if we're talking about technologies for the future. We want to try to see if we can then introduce stakeholders. My priority at the moment would be to identify operator and the place where the operator will place the machines. And once this is all in the pipeline of projects, then I can start selling the ID or GPS devices for the machines so we can identify them. So we're trying to reach a consensus on how we're going to work this out. So we're waiting for fiscal authorization. In 2 to 3 years, I would say we're going to be connecting the machines. One last question. Whenever I speak to other people in other jurisdictions,
eso es algo parte de una visión futura que tienen, así que me gustaría que compartieras una idea, obviamente sin entrar en los pormenores del proceso.
Sí, bueno, casinos online, eso sería
online casinos is a long-term project.
Definitivamente es una plataforma que está a nivel mundial que no nos podemos quedar en la parte de atrás, tenemos que avanzar en la vanguardia
we need to move forward with these platforms. Puerto Rico has the gambling culture, yes, and with bettors, and I don't know if we're going to be able to allow everyone to play through their mobile phones from home. It's going to be quite challenging. But if this happens everywhere else in the world, then we'll have to follow suit. Right now, the most important thing is that the bettor needs to get used to, for example, identify themselves or register themselves for sports betting, and then place a bet, can do the DFS, anything. So this is going to become easier with technology, when people are going to be fully identifiable after in-person registration. But we're thinking about this, everything that's happened in the past few months with the pandemic and everything that's happened on the island. To be able to play through an application from home is going to be really helpful to older people, because our economy was always sort of rather fluid if we take into account the aid we always had from the US. But if we could have spent it on that, we would have. Thank you. We're going to talk now to Alex Parente.
Alex, mi amigo Alex Pariente.
Hello, Alex, my friend.
Alex, no sé si puedo compartir dónde estás, pero estás mejor que nosotros, ¿eh? Veo una palma.
Alex, can I share where you are? I see a palm tree. Do I see a palm tree? Yes. We don't see you, but we see a palm tree. Are you in the Caribbean? I'm at home, and I'm not going to tell you anymore. Wonderful to see someone from a regulation authority who is very, very talented, with a great background concerning his professional career. That's wonderful. This is wonderful that we are actually supported by a company such as GLI. Thank you both, Jose Carlos and Orlando. And I have your numbers. I have your numbers in case I need them. Thank you. Orlando mentioned possible collaborations. Yeah, maybe. We have to leave that to the end if we can.
Mira, hablando de Hard Rock International, ¿no? que es un desarrollador de iconos en la industria de juegos, que en cada territorio que va marca.
In every territory, we see the restaurant, the pool, the entertainment, and
¿qué entiendes tú que son las ventajas que presenta?
What do you think are the advantages for the Caribbean for a company like yours? First of all, thank you very much for having invited us. First of all, I believe that what's good is that we have realized as a human being that crisis test us on our resilience, and human beings have incredible abilities to adapt. And through this very painful phase we're going through because of COVID, we hope that it's going to come to an end soon. And the governments are trying to understand what are the best talents to speed up the reform that has been debated for a long time. Now, this has accelerated the interest and on the structural changes that had been observed for a long time, but in Puerto Rico, this was even more visible. And finally, we are seeing that people like Orlando are really starting to implement solutions to old issues. So I believe that maybe this has immediately renovated an interest that was always there. So Puerto Rico has always had an interest in the development of gaming. So now we are working all together to recover this goal, this interest, and all the reform Orlando was talking about is the reform that companies in the industry have been waiting for a long time for the strategic location that has always been privileged in the island, and it's an interest focus for the entire world in expansion in this region. So it's a great advantage to be able to travel from a state to another in this synergy of all with the issues that we have when we try to transfer funds from other international places, and this transition becomes very much easier. And immediately in the framework of a market that has been created here, starting from the disasters before even COVID, like the hurricanes, etc., made the environment to be a very prepared and to receive all the signals that we are going towards the right direction in the solutions to create long-term investment. And this tells us that this is the moment when we have to sit at the table and exchange opinions. Great. So obviously, there are challenges that are established in the past, and obviously we have been affected by the pandemic, but what do you see as operators, as developers? What are you looking for, and what are you looking for when you want to establish your operations in a region? Basically, a clear regulatory framework that enables us to exchange, to improve the rules and make them as efficient as they can be, both on the side of the government interest and in the interest of the private sector. A legal framework that allows for a great level of auditing, and it's not ironical to say that when all operators are consolidated in great companies always promote and support higher regulation, which is not red tape. It's regulation to have clear rules for the process to create and establish laws and implement all the changes that at a certain time we define as game rules to give stability both at a political and economical level, and with the right taxation levels to allow operators to invest, incentivizing in a way that allows private entities to develop activities that create an income, which is a logic that we cannot take for granted, and this is proven in several other areas in the region. So clear rules and the opportunity to give incentives to investments, because this is the basic, really the benchmark, and Puerto Rican government is actually going in the right direction on this. Thank you very much. I want to ask,
¿qué oportunidades de desarrollo encuentran en el juego online y sus variantes a través de todas las operaciones, ¿no? Sé que en New Jersey tienen operaciones de juego online, pero fuera de esa jurisdicción, ¿qué oportunidades ven como parte de la mezcla que buscan al momento de establecerse?
Bueno, como tú sabes, la compañía nuestra...
When you want to establish, well, as you know, our companies, we have different market verticals, as Orlando was mentioning, and it's a line of great development. Obviously, during COVID, we have seen an exponential growth, all the part of online business. This is huge. We now have Arab Digital, and we will have more surprises. And definitely, this vertical and sub-vertical will become very relevant. And I believe that the biggest advantage for companies is to be able to offer solutions like omnichannel, very specific, where we can mix social aspects of entertainment for free and the playful activity and the sports betting and online casinos when they are allowed in the jurisdiction we are interested in, and also integrated in the experience of a physical in-presence casinos, which are within the scope of the company. And the right component can be these to attract any kind of market in a huge brand that allow us a traffic that is always desired in any entertainment center. We are not we are a leisure company, so the digital component of our company is going to cross all the market, the commercial vertical. So with Arab Digital, we are getting to a different level of evolution, and nowadays we are not only exploiting the sports book topic at the digital and online level and casino, as you know, but also we have implemented solutions that from our mobile devices or online devices we can activate, for example, physical slot machines that are available for everyone and can be seen by everyone in the casino. So once the world goes back to a certain degree of normality, when we will leave that online bubble that is now attracting the public, we will see a new gathering, and we will get to a new normal where the exploitation of internet and mobile devices as a vehicle for entertainment as an accepted at a higher level of acceptance. This will massify not only the growth to a lower degree maybe, but to a continuous level, and will improve presence in our physical casinos, because people have this physical need to interact at a different level. So we are very positive on that, and probably after the first quarter of this year. It's important your comments on the platform, not only from the viewpoint of gaming, but the variety of the market, which is scattered in different areas, places, with gamers in different places. So the online market is creating new opportunities that we have to take into account and when implementing. Now we call on to David. I can see him. David, how are you? It's nice to see you. Let's see if it's the Caribbean region with the biggest number of casinos. And what happened after the beginning of the pandemic? What's the situation there? Hello, good evening. to everyone from all over the world. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. To Alex, we have shared and fought a series of wars, of battles here in Dominican Republic, and we're still in the fight. We have not lifted the guard, and all the members of the association are first going to remove the stigma on the sector, which we have identified. Now we are realizing that we are a vulnerable sector, differently from what was expected, with a great difference. We have a high sense of responsibility, and this is something I want to highlight mostly in the Dominican region, where we somehow represent to the authorities the safeguard of health protocols. We keep on playing in a very fair and responsible way, for example, against money laundering, and we are pushing it forward to promote the programs. What do we have ahead? Well, recover the industry after this situation, and after being nominated by the authorities, and then the legitimation of the financial importance of our sector. Our goal at the moment is working on 3 axes: transparency of information. Here, unfortunately, we don't have data. We don't have exact data on the gaming industry. We only have estimates. Aim at the feasibility and viability of investments, because so far we are not able to feed properly our finance. So I've just been announced that there has been the approval of a tax levy to help us after the issues we had during the last year of struggle. And finally, we have been working on the professionalism of the sector with the elaboration of responsible gaming programs, which is something that other countries have, other jurisdictions have, but we have to implement them. And for example, anti-money laundering activities that can be improved. We are keeping on improving the health protocols. Great, awesome. And the sector of the sports bank that is not recovering, what are the expectations? What are the elements that allow for its inception of activities, for example, in the casino sector? Well, I believe that with the exception of the online part of gambling online, we have not recovered completely. We have had a huge assignment of responsibility, not only at the Dominican level, but internationally. In the casino sector specifically, the factors that affect nowadays are 3. First, the limitation of opening times, for example, for the curfew. If I don't go wrong, starting Tuesday, the timetables are a bit broader to operation, mostly on weekends, and curfew was set on noon. So we had morning casinos, which is not natural in our sector, but obviously we were putting some effort to provide our services. Tourism, what I understand and I consider it's been quite clear in the Dominican Republic. We saw many innovations taking place, and I have heard that the tourist is insured with an insurance to their stay in their countries, and also adding some more provisions to promote tourist income, more arrivals from tourists, and there are intergovernmental measures, for example, that are affecting the situation. For example, in the PCR tests before going to the United States or Spain, they are asking it, and quarantine in the United States. These limit a bit the presence of tourists and tourism in the Dominican Republic, despite our efforts. And the third factor affecting and limiting our situation is the economic repercussions of the pandemic. Very few sectors have seen, how to say, improvements, but this can be seen not only in our industry, but also our clients. And obviously, people don't have the same gaming capacity they had in previous years. Of course. And this is everywhere. The client capacity has a lot to do with sectors such as Orlando mentioned in Puerto Rico. For example, they received incentives from the United States, and then there was a second incentive, and they reached different sectors that were not necessarily functional. Speaking about your company, and you have recently invested in the Dominican Republic, what factors do you think promote development and support your brand in the Caribbean area? David, can you hear me? Yes, I lost connection for a while, but yes, I was mentioning you represent a company that has invested a lot in the Dominican Republic. So what are the factors that promote this development and interest the company in the Caribbean area? The Caribbean area for our company has always been very important. And the Dominican Republic has seen great expansion. We came here in 1990, and in 5 years we have achieved a tenfold multiplication of our establishments, and we are the first company in this sector in the country. And we would like to expand more, and we trust the Dominican capacity. We have always confided in it, and we have been charmed by the attraction of the island. 10 years ago, I had decided to come here for 2 years, and I've been here 10 years. This island absorbs you without you even realizing it, and then you are kidnapped. The Caribbean makes you fall in love with it, and you don't realize until you get there. And the companies that come here and develop their activities, we have seen this happening in Puerto Rico and in Dominican Republic, in Bermuda. We have a first casino now in April, and we have spent 1 year with a pandemic and 5 years with the relationships. And now we have bigger plans. So not only a flexibilization was sought, but also better regulation and long experience has been brought in to bring huge innovation, technologically speaking, lotteries, and there is a plan for a first resort, and there is a new gaming commission starting January this year, and has plans to regulate part of the structural activity and attract new investments. If you come and visit, you don't really believe we are under pandemic, because San Martin, for example, it's restructuring casino activities, Curaçao, restructuring the regulation of internet and online gaming, and expanding these elements at the primary and secondary level. So the Caribbean, as we are talking in more detail, it's growing. So it's captivating, it's charming. People come in here, not only have fun in on the beach or with people and food, but also in gaming. And it's not only the opinion of, I would like in this last few minutes to understand the behavior of gamers. Are they permanent or? Well, I believe that COVID came to stay, unfortunately. So we have to get used to it. We have to start looking for more safety to attract more clients. It's good and bad at the same time, because the solution of in-presence casino and physical gaming can solve it a bit, but we have to find new technologies. Now grannies are asking their grandchildren to teach them how to play on their mobiles. So if we are ready and we have another pandemic like this one, and like the one we had in Puerto Rico, and we had to stay at home all the time, if we have a tablet, and well, we are going to overcome it somehow. But unfortunately, we are going through very hard times, and at the same time we have people enjoying it, people investing, people who could not do these things, so they take the risks and hoping that things get better, and they are starting to invest more and to enter new markets, because the moment is good for investments. And this is what I would like to mention. I don't know if you realize that Juan Pedro has died, representative of Brazil, and I don't see him. I had not seen him for 20 years, and today I learned about this, and he was a friend that you've not seen in 20 years, but you know he's there, and I was really struck by it, and we were celebrating our goals, and we were crying together, and I would like to mention it. Yes, true.
No te oigo, José Carlos.
I can't hear you.
Le preguntaba a Alex, ¿qué opinas tú?
I was asking to Alex, what do you think about the gamers' behavior? Is it permanent or temporary? Well, I agree with what Orlando was saying. Unfortunately, COVID came to stay. And we have to make things milder, and we need vaccines. We will make this, we will make it affect us less and less, but today I was listening to a communication by Moderna, and they were saying that this virus is going to affect us for a long time. And our perspective, it's incredible how we adapt, and not only we integrate technology to be able to optimize and multiply the capacity to generate income, but also people will use much more digital tools as it happened in the terrible first phase of this situation. But then we will have a lot of people coming back to physical establishments, with also a change in the habits that has been created during this pandemic. So the mobile data vehicles will become channels for entertainment, for sure, even more. So there will be a change for sure. And going back to what you were mentioning, if I look at different jurisdictions that are promoting, fostering amendments to regulation, this is also a call to governors and regulators that at this moment are allowing this development, but they also found themselves in a very static position with respect to the evolution of the world and the industry and how the region is evolving. So I believe that the Caribbean region must gain more competitiveness